Hello, everyone. I'm coming at you with another energy update. I have been in all sorts of flavors of feels for the past week, as I'm sure many of you have as well. And I had some big insight over the weekend that feels like it's not just mine, feels like it could be affirming and supportive for you all as well. And one of the things that has come up for me is when Biden got elected officially after days of waiting and so much tension building, I had my moment where I was sitting on the couch watching the speeches and crying and feeling really this sense of both hope and victory, and kind of like empathy was winning, and the best part of people that I believe in so strongly was rising, as well as holding this awareness that we are quite literally at the beginning of this journey of challenging, changing, deconstructing these paradigms that have been so oppressive for so long. But overall, I was feeling inspired by hope, and relief was a big feeling. And then the next day, I woke up and it was so interesting that I felt off. I felt off all day. And I had this sense of grief and sadness and anger and even rage, and it was like coming out sideways, and I couldn't figure out why I had so much angst rising up within me after just the night before I was feeling hopeful and inspired, and like I was taking this deep breath of relief before continuing the journey forward. And as I sat with that feeling, all of those feelings in confusion and projecting it on my sweet partner who helped me process it, because I'm painfully human, I realized what was actually happening. And I want to speak to it because it may actually be what's happening for some of you all. So in my years as a therapist, one of the things I know is that safety is essential for processing trauma. Whenever I was doing somatic work with people, it was all about creating a sense of safety in the body so that those stuck emotions could move. Because when we're in our trauma response, we are just trying to manage immediate sense of danger. And that does not always look like being attacked by a tiger or something that dramatic. It can be this low-grade sense of traumatization, triggering, and things like that. And what I realize is, as long as Trump was in office and being chosen by the collective, I didn't feel fully safe as a woman. And he reminded me of various woundings of my journey with wounded masculinity and narcissism and things like that. And I did not realize that was happening because I was so focused on his overt racism, homophobia, and all of that. So until he lost the election, my body did not feel safe enough to acknowledge fully how traumatic it was for me. And so I was able to process how the grief of our country, Electoral College, choosing him as our highest position. That feeling of not that I thought he was going to knock on my door, but that the collective was choosing that mentality. And every time I would hear him speak or hear him stand for what he has stood for, I felt less and less safe. And I just suppressed that to keep on trucking. And another trauma response is to take on the role of helper or advocate rather than looking at our own trauma. I've seen this with therapists my whole career that I was there. It's easier to be the helper than the one who needs help. So this combination of all of these things made me realize that it was time to point to processing what was real for me. And it didn't need to be, in my case, months or weeks of that trauma. It needed to be acknowledged. It needed to be named. It needed to be felt. I needed to take responsibility for my own individual wounding and trauma before taking the next breath and continuing on that path of using my privilege as strategically and consciously as possible. So I invite you all to hold this very holy both and, especially those of you all who may be similar to me in this awareness of moving through life with great unearned privilege and wanting to be part of constructing a new world in a new way. We cannot overlook our own responsibility for our own trauma. That does not mean we center ourselves, but that means it needs to be both and. Otherwise, we're just going to manage that avoidance and that suppression by doing weird performative shit and doing hollow acts of whatever. So we must first take responsibility for what is ours so that we can have greater potential and resiliency to serve what is being asked of us on a collective level. I do believe that individual and collective healing is what we're being called to do right now. And for those of us that do have time, space, privilege, resources, whatever, to heal our own shit before moving on, to take a breath for us and then take a breath for others, I think we're called to do that because this is the long game. And we need to be as rooted and capable as possible to build. And that's going to be hard work. And I don't know about you, but I would often love to skip the part that's about me and just focus on others. It's actually much easier. And it's not the best. It's not the best for a variety of ways that I could go into at another time. But if you're feeling things that feel confusing or feel like they're the opposite of what you think you should be feeling right now, or you're feeling a heaviness or something like that, know that it's probably because it's like the high school bully has been sent home for OSS, for beating somebody up, and everybody shows up at school and it's kind of safer, and now all of a sudden they're talking about what's been bothering them. It's like when the immediate sense of danger goes away, truth can rise up, and we need to acknowledge all forms of truth right now, so that we can be authentic in our forward movement. So that's what came in for me. We are moving out of this fight, flight, freeze response into something that carries more breath and more awareness and more holistic perspective. And we've got to take responsibility for what is ours if we are going to serve fully. We're in the holy both and. We are being called to hold that in a variety of contexts, but today's message is really when it comes to healing and empathy and compassion. And I think when we can create a country of holding the holy both and of those things, of compassion, empathy, healing, hope, serving ourselves and serving others, we're going to have the potential to create a pretty phenomenal new paradigm. But either or is it's an outdated concept that is rooted in masculine energies and comparison and better, less than. It's this, the either or is not serving us anymore. And we are being called to hold the both and so that we can have an authentically collective experience. I hope this is affirming. I hope this is helpful. I hope that you are holding space for your healing and your service and holding deep, deep compassion for all of the surprises that may pop up in this newfound sense of space and possibility.